Hello hero, it's Lucy Lannon. It's good to see you. You've seen the title, so at this stage you know more about today's reading than I do, since I speak to you from the recent alternate past. This is a general, timeless one, ideally designed for quite a large audience, so we won't get as specific as we would in a private booking, link down below. If most of what I'm saying feels like an answer to a question you've been living, take those tidbits with you and let a fellow traveller excavate the rest. If it's not your reading, there are playlists on my channel hub to randomise finding something else. Whilst it's true that a broken clock is right twice a day, I'm not sure that same clock is right 10 times within the hour. So trust yourself, above all, to know what's useful for you and what makes you feel more empowered for hearing it, no matter what your beliefs. While we're on beliefs, on this channel gendered terms are just a specificity of language to describe energetic tendencies and signatures, solar or lunar inclination in accordance with a hermetic law of polarity, and not any kind of socialisation to buy into wholesale or conflate with the identity or orientation of anyone described. Romantic and spiritual labels used are plucked from lengthy precedent predating any unfortunate trending controversies or engineered cyclical backlash. My dude, around these parts, we don't relinquish the complexity of our full histories. We trust ourselves cognitively to adapt what we consume and see what's healthy and long-term accurate. I'm legally obliged to say this is entertainment in quote marks and that I'm an occultist not qualified in unrelated disciplines to advise on physical and mental health, finances, legalities. You get the picture, you're in charge of you. All my readings are protected and warded by frankly magnificent beneficial forces, though I don't share my custom prep rituals on camera any more than I give out my address. I hope the reasoning behind that is obvious, but you can trust there are zero parasitic or adversarial influences permitted within 100 unseen paces of any signal we patch from the noise here today. So sit back, relax into the shape of your most luminous possible future self, cozy up to imaginal allies, and take in whatever it is you need to hear. If you do like it, this small channel with a big mission very much appreciates subscriptions, thoughtful comments, or donations in order to spread the word and keep the lights on. Now, let's tune that dial. Okay, I'm going to venture that this is a love reading, partly because we began with this stone that says trust, and as I'm saying that, I'm rocking the horn which holds the spider, as many of you know, so apologies to the little guy, I think he's well up in there, so no arachnophobia warning, but again, trust and the horn rocking. If you were here for the previous reading about a persuasive element, this may be a follow-on for you. I also, excuse me, my chair is making rude sounds. For one convoluted Reddit reason or another, I have Wear the Hood At by DMX in my head, so and I'm told that it is a channel as well, it's not just that it's an earworm for today. And I actually saw a glitter worm when I was shuffling, so earworm may be relevant, or worms or leeches or something. But with Wear the Hood At, if you're a regular, hi, hail, welcome. But there's something here about assembly as well, or if you're seeing me for the first time, it's something about getting a group back together. I'm hearing getting the band back together now in my head. Just kind of meeting up after a long time of not. And even though this is a love reading, I don't see that as a one-on-one process. I mean, you may resonate with recent readings about somebody coming back with union in mind, whether or not it works out. But this is more of a group feeling. This is an assembly, right? And Seven of Cups is quite a collective energy, as is the Three. So already we've got a love reading that's about trust, that's about possibly a kind of, not necessarily a third party element, but an element that was entering in and being kind of persuasive in a not so great way. See previous reading from around this time. And people, yeah, something to do with a group coming together and the group dynamic influencing the one-on-one dynamic of presumably a connection. If it isn't a love reading, take this one for you as just describing a one-on-one relationship with family, friends, colleagues, whoever. But for many of you, I know the love readings are what you come for, and this appears to be one. Partly because of that, partly because we've got a marriage card, and then partly because of some other stuff that's going to come out. First thing to say in terms of channeled other than that is that It's rare I leave myself hungry. My nickname with my ex was Snackzilla, and for good reason. There's always 11s or some other kind of mini break for festivities along the way. I think I probably have about 8 meals a day in tiny portions. And yet, when I was shuffling and laying these down, I don't know whether you saw, but my hands were shaking. I was very ungrounded. You may have had the shakes, or the person that we're speaking about here may have had that, or for some of you, I'm even hearing Parkinson's is relevant, maybe to close family members or something like that, because I looked at my hands and thought, blimey, they're shaky, and then thought of a friend who has Parkinson's. So not to scare you if that's not you. If it is you, you'll already know about it, but it might just be a confirmation for somebody here that if you care for somebody with that, or that's relevant to your family or something, this is actually your reading, whether or not those first points hit, right? But this sort of other thing I'm getting from that, and I did eat when I took a break sort of post-shuffle, is that you might need to ground or eat, or there's some kind of need for stillness here because you've been working yourself to a point where you are shaking. Excuse me, hiccups, confirmation, that is definitely there for some of you. I'm also going to kick my chair out of the way and sit on the ground for this, because that always helps with that kind of energy where we need to be a bit more settled. It hurts my back, but it's better for feeling grounded vibes. So there we go. Okay, where do I begin? Transformation of base motives and goals into golden wisdom. I feel like whatever this is, and I am wearing a twin flame ring today, so this might resonate in that sense, it's a learning experience. Now, I don't mean to say that we're going to end up in a dodgy place and that it was all just a learning experience, because I know that will piss many of you off, and it's not actually what's been said here. But I feel like the way that you'll know who this is, whether it's love or not, is that the whole thing has taught you a lot. And when I say that, you know, collective groan, collective eye roll, gnashing of teeth, all the where the wild things are things. It's just one of those connections that's put you through the ringer somehow, or broken some kind of lineage thing, or some kind of pattern in your own relationship to other people. I feel like if you weren't aware of your attachment style, the way that you enact boundaries, the way that you communicate when things are tough before this connection, certainly this is what made you aware, right? And for many of you, that will be because you had to put an extra guard up because somebody is, I don't want to say playing games, because we're not really getting that sort of game energy from this. It's not full fuckboy, but there's something here where they're testing how far they can take something, right? Or they did in the past, should I say. Establishing energy is 7 of Cups. So somebody who is not seeing you for what you actually represent, but is instead mentally surveying their options over and over, maybe coming to a bit of indecision about that, thinking with this sort of written stuff in the mind that they do see clearly, but actually not seeing clearly at all. And somebody who in the past has had to wear a mask for a very long time. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this is their modus operandi in relationships, but it can mean that they had, for example, a familial unit where they weren't the most emotionally expressive, or a friendship circle where there was an aspect of themselves they had to keep hidden. For some of you, I'm hearing sexuality, right? You may have been an experience or provided an experience for this person, which opened them up to something which they had to hide from their friends for one reason or another. And for many, that is because it's same sex, or it's to do with, you know, kind of non-binary identifications, or just going outside of the norm in some way. I think they like to have their options stacked. This is looking like a stack of cards to me, like, oh, take one off the top, evaluate that one, put it down, next one, evaluate that one, you know. It's not so much a plate spinning or breadcrumbing thing as it is, try this one, nope, next, you know. And what I'm hearing is thank you, next. So some of you may be either watching that Turkish series on Netflix, or you're Ariana Grande fans, I know nothing about her, but props to you, you do you. It's just a confirmation if so, but it is that very like thank you next energy of this one isn't working out, quick flip the deck, the next one, and we'll put that one face down. And I think there isn't necessarily a conscious point with this person until you, where they've looked at that systematic behaviour and gone, oh, firstly, the cards that I'm laying back on their front will actually have a process, a reaction to me doing that, right? If this person is very like, try that, no, discard, then it's suddenly occurring to them that other people feel the discard process. And this may be the first time they've had to feel that, because there's a bit of any gender, but there's a bit of Prince energy coming through in terms of like Prince in its entitlement. I'm thinking of somebody I know very well who has always got the girls, who had big kind of prefect energy at school, went to a posh school, always had money, you know, all that sort of stuff, where it's like, well, yeah, you've always had advantage physically and otherwise. So of course it hasn't occurred to you what people feel like in discard mode. But I think with this person turning all these cards over and going, not so fond of that one, or maybe I can do better next. They've never really thought about what that looks from the other side to the other end. And they've perhaps been in such strong Prince energy, particularly if they're socially influential or have a tick under their name or anything like that, that nobody's ever challenged them on it from the discarded card pile, right? Nobody's ever said, hey, did you just throw me away? Because it's almost like they have so much clout behind them. They have so much good business reputation, social reputation, maybe even a cover relationship type thing going on, that people kind of can't get in, or they can't speak loudly enough, or there's like a class difference, or I want to say race difference, or something else coming in that means that like anybody expressing, but you just slept with me and threw me away, or the energetic equivalent, is going to kind of get a backlash from the community based on their status rather than the behaviours of this who we're calling Prince, right? And your role with this person partly has been to come in and be an alchemizing energy, developing communication on both sides, excuse me, tongue, come back, transforming their base motives, very base for some of you, purely sexual for many of you, and goals into golden wisdom. So there's some identification from this person that where they want to be eventually in this truly important stuff that isn't this discard process or these discarded people, you know, the big thing that they use as the excuse that they're always paying actual attention to is something you're also chasing in some way, right? So because you identify with them on that core value level, and that's something they perhaps don't experience very often, or something they never get close enough to other people to see whether they experience, right? Because this isn't someone who actually gets to know the people they're interacting with beyond what it is that they're getting out of it. But they've had that experience with you where that value alignment is very upfront, and we've got 2 here, so that's second house, all agrees with that. And it's kind of like, oh, but you can be that as well, or you can align with me in that way, or and for some of you, if this person was born male, however they identify now, because we're socialized as what we're born as, there is some degree of misogyny in this of like, but wait, how can you be femme or female or whatever, sort of not male or not in the same way, and have a brain or have the same value system, or how come you're not just throwaway? Because I feel like their attitude to other people is consistently throwaway. It's giving misogyny, and that's whether or not they're attracted to female partners, right? There's some kind of systemic thing here where they are in a position of kind of patriarchal privilege, whether or not they're same gender, and that means that they can look at other people as, well, I'll just sample that, I'll just try that. It's like somebody's come up to them with a load of supermarket samples or something, and they've just like essentially gone through the whole tray and left the person holding it like, what the fuck, dude, that was my entire supply. And then they've sort of gone, maybe I'll buy one. Anyway, see ya. It's like, and it is very like, I think partly why I'm getting the misogyny vibe is that it's very much that like older generation masculine thinking of, yes, all those cheeses had their own benefits. Maybe one day I'll actually pay for cheese. As in like, maybe one day I will actually offer reciprocal energy, or I will actually think about commitment, but it will only be when it's kind of come to crunch time, either because they're in a connection with somebody whose body clock is ticking and they force that, or because they're kind of aware that their level of princedom or attractiveness or their variety in their selection is dwindling slightly. So they're like, oh yeah, it's probably time to settle down now. I'm balding a little bit. I've got a few grey hairs. Maybe the balls are a little bit closer to the ground than they used to be. It's probably time to think about getting into an actual relationship and practicing those skills, ready for having the very convenient setup of a wife. It's that kind of a thinking. And again, this doesn't have to be love energy or relationship energy directly, but it can be the kinds of dynamic that you're identifying with. So for instance, if this was a professional relationship, this may be the sort of person that switches from job to job, or even project experience to project experience. They may have been a serial apprentice, or they may have had lots of small creative endeavours that haven't entirely worked out. And they're sort of shelving, yes, I will be committed to a company or to a particular enterprise, for later when they've like run out of those options. And yet you have come in for the transformation of base motives with your similar goals, your similar alignment in terms of what this person actually values now, not what they're putting off and will value and kind of promise themselves they'll do eventually, but where they stand now on what's important. You've immediately demonstrated that, and they've sort of gone, oh shit, I don't know for some reason whether I can treat you like these other cards in the deck that I've flipped over, or these other people I've discarded, or these other opportunities that I've gone through. Excuse me, I'm sorry if you heard me kind of wheezing there. There's a bit of something on my chest at the moment. I do apologise, but that kind of second energy, that felt to me like it's like either a throat singing vibe, or it's Donnie Darko, where James Duvall's character says wake up, and there's like two voices to it, and it's sort of Donnie's voice but sort of not. There is something in them that is trying to speak alongside their voice, and they are not used to that. I think you have woken up this person's kind of innate value system in some way. Hit like if this is resonating, by the way, because I really need to spread the word about the channel, but we will continue. I'm just like, prompts, etc. Sub if you like it. Right. So yeah, there is a second voice within this person, an unexpressed self, if you like, perhaps even the self that they were going to get out later when they take these other opportunities off the shelf and say, yes, it's probably time now, I've left it a while. And this self is kind of speaking out in their own voice as you're speaking to them. So the reason I had to be a bit chesty there and I had to have dual voices is that is kind of what's happening with this person. And you'll note that if it's coming from the chest rather than the throat, it's coming from heart chakra energy. So there is an opening up for those for whom this resonates as a relationship. There is an internal recognition that this cannot be treated the same way that they have treated people prior. And I think that frightens them, or I think they push it down if it doesn't frighten them, because it's an inconvenience to this princely energy they've been living in. And prince is not always a bad thing. I've done readings on this channel where we've got the prince in the upright. It's a good energy if it's not misused, if it's not like spoiled child vibes. But what I'm getting from the person I'm thinking about is that it can really go either way, right? And if you're watching, and if you are that person, I still love you, don't worry about it, right? It's just that sometimes privilege can make you do things that aren't a great pattern, right? And we both know that's true. Okay, so that's just one card. Sorry guys, rambling on. Allowing myself a daydream is interesting because this is your This Day I Am card for you. This is your advice. And yet we're immediately mirroring the first card on the table. So in the same way that this person is probably a little bit pie in the sky about what they actually want and therefore tries on all these options and goes not quite right in this very Three Bears style way that they never quite get to the porridge, right? Or they never quite get to the right chair or whatever it is. I think you're almost so hesitant about being in that kind of energy that you don't allow yourself to try different things out, even on a fantasy level, I want to say. So if this person has been showing up this way and you're resonating, and if you're into tarot and you already know that this Three of Cups can also be a bit kind of third party-ish, or can delineate somebody with maybe a little too many options, a little too many martinis going on, right? Then I think you will have, I want to say you'll have assimilated that and become extra cautious about your own activities. And that may mean that if there are other options to you than this person, again, in whatever facet of life this is, because it doesn't have to be love, I think you've closed down to those other things. I think you've not allowed yourself to dream about where they can go, or you've kind of self-justified and said, maybe I'm just not as attracted to this other person. I get it. I've been in that energy actually very recently where something, genuinely good for me is turning up. And because I'm in a still addictive mode to something which really isn't, or hasn't been thus far, but promises to be, should I say, in that twin flame way, I've had a real struggle of being able to click into the recognition of no, this is really good. This is just straightforward and healthy. And I really fancy this person and they really fancy me. And it's going forward in the way it should, at the pace it should. And there's this part of your energy that I'm feeling very strongly, which is a stage I went through of, oh, do I like them though? Do I fancy them though? Because it's just not that other thing. But the answer is, yeah, I think you do. Or I think if it's not that you need to entertain another option in a mental way, it's that you need to just open yourself to the idea of other options at all. And I see a lot in comments of readings sort of along these lines where somebody's been in this energy. People saying, oh, well, I'd never take so-and-so back and I'm done with it and they can carry on with their blah, blah, blah energy. But all these people have come to the reading to seek out information on that same person, right? All the people saying, well, I'm done with them and click, click and whatever and all this sort of 90s bullshit. They're always investing enough to watch the whole reading on a person they're apparently over. And I feel a bit of that coming from your end with whatever this is, with love, right? I feel a little bit like you're fully ready to go to the comments, and by all means do comment, and say, oh, I do allow myself other things. In fact, I went on a date last night and blah, blah, blah. But there is a lack of sincerity with that energy. There is a lack of the Neptunian energy coming in of, I'm entertaining this in the dreaming. I'm imagining things. I'm fantasizing about things. For some of you, and again, I'm reading this because it's almost a reflection of my own energy, until very recently, you may not have been able to kind of sexually fantasize about anybody. You may not have gone into that realm beyond what it is that other people want. Because it's kind of difficult for you to generate what you would want almost without a sense of betrayal accompanying it. And I'm really sorry if that is you. And there is indication from some of the colours and things going on here that is about to be unblocked, right? That there is that beautiful sacral orange energy coming in for you of sexual healing, right? Even if that's just in your own fantasies, in your own private time, right? Whatever you do. But I think that in order for that to come through, you need to go into the cognitive space first that's easier to access than that sexual space, and say kind of to yourself, I'm going to allow myself a daydream. I'm going to allow myself a fantasy that has nothing to do with this other person or other situation at all. That's probably the opposite of what they would be into, right? Because sometimes that's then a safer zone. But that plays with maybe what some of my other options are or could be. Like, I almost want to say, you know, whether this is a connection in a romantic way or not, what did you want before this person started playing around? Or before they entered your worldview and you became a little bit addicted to their vibe, right? Which is fine, and we all do it. But where were you before that? Who were you before you met them? Even if you have to go back years, what were your interests? What were your friends like? What city were you in? What were you doing for work? What were you doing in your spiritual life? What fired you up where you were? Because I think, yes, they'll have echoed some of that because you clearly do share goals and values, but also there is something else there that you can tap back into and say, oh, I completely forgot that I used to be really into this thing, and therefore one of my fantasies was this. And I kind of put it to the back of my mind because it wasn't their mode, or it wasn't something I thought they'd be into, but maybe that's something I can explore. And again, that can be sexually or just like romantically, or if this is about projects and collaboration and friendships and things like that, it can be about whatever it is that you would have liked to have in common with them that you didn't quite get to, or that you didn't have in common, you know, depending on how deep this energy went, because it may be that they only had a relatively chance encounter with you too and then tried to move on. But it meant something to you and it meant something to them, otherwise we wouldn't be seeing this. And in this particular deck, excuse me, throat is going crazy, so I feel like they don't want me to tell you that it meant something to them, because that's part of this thing they do. You know, again, whether it's with relationships, jobs, friendships, family connections, whatever, you do you, boo. But there is almost like a reluctance to admit that they care about somebody or identify with someone else's value system for whatever reason. Woo-sa! Okay. We have a Two of Swords, which I think I'll address now. We've already mentioned the two energy, but I think it's interesting that we've got this indecisive thing going on here, and we're already speaking about somebody whose connections are usually very fleeting and very kind of transactional and base, and they may say based and you say base, right? It's they think that what they're doing is just party energy. You think that what they're doing is non-committal and slightly a red flag, and I would agree with you clearly. But there's something here about choosing. So I think from your side, this is almost the traditional energy of the Smith-Waite version of the blind or blindfolded woman with the two swords. You feeling that you entered into a situation blind and now you're having to choose between that and something else. But the something else almost seems as abstract because you haven't allowed yourself this daydream, this fantasy yet. And then from their end, there is a choice between, do I go down this path of somebody who's already been very transformative and who clearly has aligned goals with me and who has maybe even offered me a little bit of wisdom in an indirect way about how I have been living, just by virtue of contrast and by, like, let's have a look at what you could have won if you weren't being such a dipshit. Sorry, bias. But there's that kind of, should I follow that up? And then there's also kicking in the regular fear that this person has of, if it's not transactional, if it's not quick, if it's not immediately followed by the next various exciting thing, then I will get a kind of relationship ADD and I will want to break out and I will potentially send this crashing down. Or if I don't know what comes next, because I don't know how to function in, I don't want to call it correct energy, because all energies are correct for the time that they're enacted, right? And they're correct for the person living them. But they don't want to step up, is what I want to say. It's a very frightening prospect to them, because that means stepping out of the prince just enough that they can admit that while they were in the palace, not everything visible to everybody else was as it seemed. And that's actually a huge vulnerability. I think actually that, you know, we talk often on this channel about people who can't be vulnerable with their emotions or can't communicate in a certain way or whatever. And that's going to come out in love readings, because a lot of the time we're checking in on ghosters or avoidance or whatever because of the way they do relationships and the patterns that leaves the rest of us in. But this isn't quite that. This is more kind of, the vulnerability here is not the expression of their truth, because actually I feel they're very articulate and they could be quite good at expressing that. They could even be very good with language, even bordering on the manipulative with language, and very kind of adept at expressing what it is that they want people to believe is going on with them, in order to keep doing this flipping thing where they're not even breadcrumbing, they're just discarding people. But it's not that, right? They're happy with saying all of this or expressing this. The vulnerability is to admit that what they've been doing so far hasn't been working. And for a prince energy, or I'm hearing a PIMP energy, right? It's really tough, because they're kind of there. And I want to say that I don't want to like trigger anybody if this isn't you, or if it's not a relationship thing, or it's just not that extreme. But the image I'm getting in my head is like a rapper surrounded by hoes having to very kind of kindly and politely apologize to the hoes and say, could you please clear out of the building, my wife is on the way. You know, it's like it's the admission that that isn't always going to be how they live that's the difficult part. It's not the conversations involved in that. It's not the backlash, right? It's not that these disposable, in inverted commas, women actually all have personalities and lives and aren't disposable people and may have something to say on it. Nor is it the reaction from you in discovering how they used to be. It is simply the switch from one mode into another, acting as an admission that they don't always know everything about how to live. That's what it comes to. Because I feel like this person is potentially wealthy, certainly privileged, definitely kind of academically or intellectually up there, relatively good at expressing their emotions in a way where they can always backtrack with that good old fuckboy or fuckgirl line of everybody knew what was going on and it was all consensual because I explained it in great detail. It's like, yeah, as if that prevents emotional damage, dude. But, you know, they're always able to do all that. But what they're not used to doing is having anybody critique anything they've been doing because of those positions of power, or having anybody say this isn't the way you live. Potentially in childhood, there is a sense of bratish energy, or if that doesn't resonate, they may be a sexual brat, or they may be into brats, right? But there's some kind of thing to do with the word brat here. I'm hearing brat's dolls as well. I don't know why that would be relevant, but it's in there. Yeah, I just think they don't want to try a new route, because then they would have to admit that they're curious about something in a way that implies they don't know everything about everything. It is really an ego journey, and that is why the alchemist has stepped in, right? The spiritual alchemist. For some of you, I feel like you may even look like this person. So take that as it resonates, but that's confirmation for some. I know in the past in my private readings, I've had, you know, really vivid descriptions of clients, and that's been their kind of, oh yeah, she's definitely legit kind of signifier. But there's something there about that. Okay, this alchemist pouring one substance into another. These like stars or whatever it is that she's pouring, they're reminding me of jelly stars in kind of early 2000s diaries and phone cases and things, where you'd have that thing with like a jelly shape or like glitter in water or kind of lava lampish type stuff between clear perspex things, and it'd be all kind of squishy. So for some of you, ASMR is really relevant to either you or this person, or you've found me through like listening to tarot as ASMR, and then you've stumbled upon me, and I do apologise that I probably don't sound so soothing, but that's confirmation again. What is it if not, Spirit? Why is it that squidgy texture that I want to talk about? Why is that the Alchemist? Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah. All right, so there's something here. If you did resonate with you're potentially straight or at least bi, and you're a feminine energy and this is masculine energy. Again, this won't be for everyone, so please just bear with me while I say that bit. But if that did hit home, and there is some degree of misogyny to this, I think the reason I'm thinking of those like jelly toys and diaries and things that I used to love as a kid, because I was very girly, is because they're kind of, again, it's the clear perspex. So we're talking about the translucency energy that we've covered before on this channel, the energy of illusion and occasionally of things like sex work. But in this instance, it's the glamour energy. It's the sort of spell of the good folk as translucency. We're speaking about somebody in you who might come across as very kind of girly in a way that I want to say is like borderline twee or kawaii or just like hyper girly. Maybe that's why I got the Bratz dolls thing. But you know, flowers on everything, Lizzie McGuire aesthetic type energy. It's very, it makes me think of the phone in One Missed Call, in both the ringtone and the way that the phone was set up, and that time period and that aesthetic, like Tamagotchi, flowery, kind of just hyper girlified. I don't know what to call it if it's not that, but it's in a translucent way. And because I was thinking of a diary, so we're thinking of the content of a book with this veneer of all of that over it, right? I think that what this is trying to tell me in an image is that if this person is used to dealing with girls or visco girls or that girl or clean girl or any of the other somethings ending in girl or core or whatever that are currently trending and are a bit like they're an aesthetic but they're empty of value, and the people sort of doing them like fully do them like, oh, because I am a something core, I listen to this and I do these things and I always go here on a Wednesday, and you know, that kind of thing, right? So they see all of that culture in the way that I'm describing it there, which was a little mean of me, I'm sorry, but as like frivolous. It's aesthetics kind of culture as purely an aesthetic, devoid of subcultural root, devoid of actual core to the core, right? I mean, long before this aesthetic movement, we used to joke about putting the word punk on the end of things to make a new subculture that didn't exist. Like, it's that sort of feeling that this person looks upon feminine or female coded things as having that frivolousness and emptiness to them. But as us girls know, sometimes that's the case and not all of the time. And I feel like potentially this is the jelly case with all the glitter and doodads and rhinestones and all the rest of it on a decent book or on a diary that is very articulate. And I'm looking over sort of past that way in my room at my bookcase, and I'm seeing The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, which again, like more than it seems, right? Deeper than it seems. Secret lives going on. Secret depths of darknesses, secret addictions, secret humanitarian endeavours, you know, all this complexity of a character like Laura that is encased in this, like, oh yeah, she's a blonde. You know what I mean? Like, it's that sort of feeling. You don't have to be blonde. But it's like the diary that I'm envisioning is that core of you that is actually incredibly complex and has all these different facets, all these different interests, all these different motivations and momentums and directions that you're moving in different spheres. And yet what this person saw was the outer casing of femininity that for them is something they're naturally drawn to because it looks good on the Instagram, it looks good on the relationship CV, and crucially, because it is, it tends to be a relatively fleeting energy, or it tends to be one that is very sort of image focused in its momentum in society. It also tends to be one that can be easy to manipulate. And I think that's why it's like tweeny imagery that I'm getting as well, because it's that age of girlish naivety. It's the Valerie and her week of wonders feeling of being like too young to know better, but old enough to want to explore. And I think that they associate that with femininity. And that is their misogyny, right? And it's coming through in the way I'm talking about it, partly because I'm trying to express their energy, partly because of internalized misogyny for me as well. I'm very much gone girl, cool girl speech about a lot of things, but I also feel like I needed to express it in precisely that way, and universe gave me that image to say to you, your packaging was like what they're used to dealing with. But the thing with you is that you couldn't be discarded. And what I don't want to imply from that this is a not like the other girls thing, because I'm very much up for the idea that actually all of the people using that femininity energy are kind of cloaking, right? We're all a lot cleverer than we let on. We're all Elle Woods, right? But because we're seeing the way that a male would see Elle Woods on the cover of the movie and not experience her character through the movie, it's like a useful costume to wear almost. So like all of these people they've been saying were frivolous or were airheaded or were any of the other things that have fired at anything that's not masculine, they sort of find it jarring that you're presented that way, but you're not like that. Actually, my feeling is that nobody they've been with is like that they're all interesting, good, diverse isn't the right word. They're complicated people. But this person has used that aesthetic to get in there, to deal with them in an uncomplicated way so that they can point fingers and say, you are uncomplicated, and throw away, and now I'm going to throw you away and try the next spicy new aesthetic, right? So I think the run through, again, if you're identifying with the sort of compet version of this, and I'm sorry to those who don't, but the like follow through energy of all of their connections prior may have been that even, on the spectrum of like, oh, this is extreme goth girl and this over here is like mega visco beach girl energy, right? And those two things are very sort of far apart in how they operate and what they tend to be into. But this person's through line of that is like girly, 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 because they sort of, it's not that they hate women. Well, it probably is, but it's that they code femininity as disposability. That's what I'm getting at. So you offering a less brief experience than that has really like shaken them up and like befuddled their tiny brain, their smooth brain. Actually, it's not a tiny brain, but you know what I mean? Like it's sort of countered their cleverness because they saw it as, I have fleeting connections with people who identify in some way with femininity. Therefore, you look like you are that way. And I will also have a fleeting thing with you and maybe dispose of you afterwards. And you've come in and gone, hey, this is my packaging, but did you know that these are my goals and values? And you've kind of had that Cary Grant, Rosalind Russell back and forth with them from the get-go, which has kept them intrigued, kept them turned on, but has also been like jarring for them because you haven't gone in with the hesitancy of the people that they used to deal with, who are perhaps used to being dealt with that way because of misogyny, right? So it's like this catch-22 thing of the women they've fucked over in the past, if this is you, have come across in a more surface way, purely because their previous experiences with dudes like this have made them more hesitant to reveal their full personalities, because they know the backlash that can happen there and the consequences of it being a very real danger. So then they're offering less than that surface personality in a sort of first few meetings, and this person only operates in a first few meetings. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like the not like the other girlsness is countered by the fact that, like, who fucking knows what these other women were like, quite frankly, because this person didn't give them a chance to have a personality. And therefore, they can click back into Prince and go, this person over here, they're just shallow, they're just about the aesthetic, they're just super girly, they didn't excite me, so I'm moving on. And meanwhile, this other person who's probably very interesting and, you know, who has a soul, right? And who has their own dreams, their own life, their own way that they saw this connection, doesn't really get a chance to speak because they're just swept off the board. Whereas you came in, I feel like, in the mode of somebody who demands the opportunity to speak, or indeed just takes it. Like, doesn't even need to ask this person. Like, it's what's that fucking brilliant meme? There is a glittering picture of Britney on one of my Spotify playlists, and the caption is, I only accept apologies in cash. That's it. You came in with, I only accept apologies in cash energy, twinkling at them, smiling at them, being very sexually beguiling maybe, but also being like, no, I'm going to speak, don't talk over me, in a way that stunned them so much that they didn't. And now they don't know what to do. Right, I'm going to sweep that off the board, just like they swept these other girls, in case either you're not compare or this isn't a connection energy. But I feel that that whole chapter on misogyny needed to be said, right? Because some of you are identifying hard, and you're also regaining respect for this person's other connections that you may have lost or not had, or, you know, we're positioned as women by people like this to compete with each other and see each other as the enemy. And, you know, if you've had a similar experience to me and you've been like stalked by the other woman online and all this sort of stuff, it's very easy to get into a pattern of going, that bitch is the reason that this happened, you know? But actually, I feel like part of the reason I gave that little speech was for you to go, oh yeah, they're all dealt with the same way. So who knows what they're like? Who knows whether they have any ill intent towards any of this? Who knows whether, you know, they're better or worse than me? Because we're all equal, right, at base. And I feel like the real thing to pay attention to here is not who they've been dealing with and in how much and how many times and all this sort of stuff, but that they do this, right? Be aware that they always do this. And yes, you're turning that process around with your alchemy, but don't do the societal thing that we're encouraged to do under patriarchy, under porn, all the rest of it, where we're meant to point the finger at the other woman and not at the man putting us in that position, right? Anyway, right, let's go forward because I'm sick of that energy. Gone, right. So, the Three of Cups, in a in a different interpretation, should I say, of that same thing, that isn't relationship based or isn't to do with misogyny and all that sort of stuff. This is somebody who is entertaining many options, as we've discussed, but it's also somebody who might have been in like party energy, jovial energy. I don't need to settle down and commit to this project yet because I am XYZ years of age. I don't need to follow this the whole way through because I'm too inexperienced to be a project leader, so-and-so will take up the slack. Yada, 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 you get the picture. It's that type of thing in a different mode. And again, you've come in not being sort of overtly dominant, not being demanding, not being in any way unfair or even abrupt, but just embodying this kind of queenly vibe of, yes, we're going to work together on equal terms, right? Because that's always the way it works, right? And this person has been like, shit, I can't say it's not the way I usually do it, so I'll just agree. 10 of Pentacles is this person sees this as a legacy project, or you as a legacy person. If you're resonating with the romantic interpretation, I doubt that this person has put a figure to that, even if, as I said towards the beginning of the reading, they were shelving the idea of marriage or whatever later. I don't think they ever kind of put somebody in that role that wasn't like an outside celebrity fantasy or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, if they imagined their future, I don't think it was with anybody that they knew better than an Angelina Jolie or a Megan Fox. I think it was very much like ephemeral, and that's why there's a lot of Neptunian stuff coming through, and a lot of cups as well. This isn't emotional cups, this is daydreamy, a bit clouded cups, right? But now, having had this encounter with the alchemist, on like a soul level, I think they're sensing that you would be the thing to switch things around, or that you mean more to them. And in their smooth brain, who hasn't really had an experience of a reciprocal, monogamous, kind of efforted relationship before, they are seeing your difference and going, oh, that difference must mean wifey or hubby or whatever, you know. It's like, because I'm not used to this, the fact that it's an outlier instantly puts this person into legacy territory. Now, you will differ wildly in the audience, because this is a general reading, as to whether you would agree with that. Some of you may be a simp like me that are in a twin flame connection where you're like, yeah, probably down the line that might be the case if this person gets the shit together. Others of you will say, excuse me, just because I'm the first person that you've met who stands up to the way that you operate, it does not make me a fixture in your future, right? It doesn't make me a safe bet for your life. I'm not here to be your mummy. I'm not here to fix you, right? And that is also very valid. And I would actually, you know, despite my own situation, I would maybe push for my audience to learn from my mistakes and go into that and say, I'm not your mother. What are you doing? Act grown, or I'm leaving for something already on my level, which clearly is available, right? I'm so glad I didn't settle or give up. I knew I'd find you. I think this is a reframing from this person. That the reason they've been doing this bullshit thing of like person to person to person to person in order to maintain variety, right? That's all it is. It's their need for variety and newness that's not being met elsewhere, possibly because they have to compromise in other areas of their life to other people. But it's like they're reframing that now in the light of maybe seeing you in their future as being like, oh, I'm so glad that I screwed over all these other people because I wasn't willing to settle down because I was looking for you. In truth, my dude, they were not looking for you. They were not looking for anything other than their next hit, right? And I use that language purposely because this is giving a kind of attention addiction thing, whether or not it's romantic, whether or not it's sexualized. But they're preparing the line to you, I think, of, I'm so glad I didn't settle for second best, i.e. all these other potentially feminine energies, because I knew that something wasn't right with them and it was actually that I was waiting for you. Don't fall for that, because really, I think the reason that they weren't settling on one particular thing was just that they wanted entertainment and they never had to consider that throwing other people away continuously to get their sexual needs met or to get attention needs met that perhaps weren't met as a kid or whatever was like actually a really dysfunctional, horrible way to be. And they're retconning that even in their own brain of like, oh, it's not that I'm really badly behaved. It must have been that I was holding out for this transformative person. And I would, if you do identify with like, I am in love with this person, I do want to give them a chance in the future, but I want them to sort this out first, then I would caution you to I would encourage you to watch the identification from their end of you with a solution to this being a problem, right? Because actually this was their problem. This wasn't some romanticized experience where they're not settling into a career, not settling into a role or a responsibility, not settling into putting back into a friendship, etc., etc., because they were holding out for the likes of you to come in and clean everything up, or to show them what was real. It's very much like that would be a compensation, and for them to assign that to you, it's not only an unfair pedestal for you to live up to, but it's also just horseshit. It's massive horseshit, and it leaves you more vulnerable to them falling back into, but I deserve variety, or have an entitlement to people further down the line, and then saying that their past behaviour has nothing to do with what they're doing presently, because their past behaviour was just them holding out for you. Do you see what I mean? So like, if, say this is romantic, and say this person does some work on themselves, maybe works with addiction stuff, maybe dwindles their contacts, gets rid of their black book, etc., and kind of comes back to, no, I want a relationship, I want to be reciprocal and work on it, comes back to you and offers a mature reconciliation, but also like a genuine offering of something in the future. What you don't want then is for them to still be tempted by like, kind of bored with this stable reciprocal energy where I have a lot of responsibility and I have to actually do shit. I miss being the prince. I'm going to do some little dodgy prince things on the side. But again, then it's like, oh, but I'm so in love with you that you changed my ways. Why don't you believe me, baby? You know? Fuck that. If this is purely professional, there is a risk here of like, you get so many years into a collaboration or a more steady position for them, and they're sort of like, remember when I just had like whatever job got me through the next few weeks so that I could go surfing for a month? You know what I mean? Like, they're getting into that energy of, I'm going to fund this with this again, instead of, no, this is a position of stability. This is where I want to be. For some of you, I'm hearing it's a housing thing as well. Like, do you want them to commit to, for instance, buying a house with you as a family member, and then realizing further into that partnership that because they romanticize that you changed their mind on that, they didn't think it through thoroughly, and actually now they miss the freedom of renting in different cities, right? And then you're left with their side of the mortgage. It's that kind of a thing. Marriage is not in my future. I've given that a lot of thought. This is a reminder that used to be the line to people who were getting too involved, or that used to be what they would justify in terms of their businesses, their bosses, their friends. It's like, oh, I'm not actually up for that further level of commitment. I'm not somebody who lives in one place. I'm not somebody who has a steady job. I'm not somebody who is an employee. I'm not somebody who commits to another person because I've really thought about it and it's just not my sincere energy. That used to be their line. That they're now switching that line up because they've met you and you've sort of challenged it by your presence does not mean that they are now in their integrity, okay? It just means that like both of these things aren't really true. They weren't doing this before because they'd genuinely decided that it was never for them. They were doing it because their prince status afforded them the time to fuck about. And they weren't thinking this before when they were doing all this fuck around and find out stuff. It was actually that they just knew that they could. Yeah? There's so much in this reading about how the entitlement that they had intersects with ego, and that they knew through youth or money or sexual privilege or any other of these intersecting things, that they had the free time and the good position to just try things and discard them over and over again in whatever area. And that meant that they could give anybody they wanted whatever narrative suited about why they were doing that thing. So if you were the girl that was going to be the throwaway for next week, they would say, I'm sorry, commitment just isn't in my future. You're being too full on. You're being codependent. And then they would use that as the reason to break away and try the next thing. And if, on the flip side of that, they meet somebody like you who is in a more mature energy, a more stable energy, where you're happy with your choices, and therefore you sort of choose the same thing in a repeat, responsible, steady way, then they're going to say like, oh, I'm so glad that I went through that sowing my oats period because it was all for you. I really hope you're getting the insincerity here, because I don't want to say I don't like this person, because I think they are quite charming, and I think, there is truth to some of the reasons that they have this advantage. They are very clever. They are very likable even. And they perhaps do want a commitment to something more steady in the future. But the problem is that it's always been in the future, in the far future for them. This is a person, I would guess, who is relatively ableist, who's never had to deal with, for example, the idea that they could be dead in 10 years, or, they've even if they've dealt with a bereavement, I doubt that they've ever had somebody in their age group or in their peer group pass away and had that kind of thought of, damn, that could have been me. What do I want to do now? Right? It's always very much like, I'm going to live forever. I'm going to be able-bodied forever. If I get a cold, it's the end of the world because I'm fine normally. And like, fuck anybody else who deals with more problems than that. But, 10, 20 years down the line, I can be in the same mode of behaviour, because it's only when I come to being 60, 70, 80 and my balls have dropped a bit and I'm a bit whiskery that I have to decide. You know what I mean? It's like the pressure has never really been on this person from external circumstances in the way that it might have been if they'd been around people who are less able-bodied, people who are less privileged in a real way that actually affects them, and not just like a performative, oh, I'm sorry, bud kind of a way. People that have dealt with genuine adversities, people that have dealt with genuine discriminations, be they, physical, racial, sexual, otherwise. This person is like, they've been in the sandpit, they've just been playing, right? And they've not had to interact with the parents around the edges of the playground, watching with that life experience, seeing what they'll do next. And I think you're coming in with, you're in their age group perhaps, but you're coming in with that almost parental energy of like, I know what it's like to just play. I also know what it's like to kind of hunker down on something and commit to it, or to just give it what it actually deserves instead of what is the minimum that I can afford. And it's just throwing them off, right? They don't know which narrative to go with, quite frankly. Which brings us to the orange shade. Orange is very much trickster energy. I think of foxes when I think of orange, but also it is that kind of sacred harlequin, sacred clown, jestery, fool card vibe. It's very Uranian. And it can be being duplicitous in that same way as both these lies and transparency, translucency, like we talked about from your end, of like seeming one thing but being much more than that. And that is in a sacred sense with orange, because we're talking about trickster gods. So, there's a lot of stuff thrown on YouTube, thrown around about like, oh, a trickster spirit, as if that's the worst thing in the world. Dude, many of the names that you hear thrown about in pagan circles are trickster spirits. That's where they originated. It's a good thing. It's just that it can also be used for ill, or it can have an element of chaos to it, which to our eyes, as people who don't deal with unpredictability well, because we're mere mortals, seems like it should instigate terror, right? So it's this, trickster is only really a bad position depending on where you're standing, but it's a very holy energy. Indeed, I would argue to those trickster spirit people that there is trickster energy in the Bible, in both testaments actually, if you count Solomon and Jesus. So it's not like it's this adversarial terrible thing, but as you can tell, it's operating from this person in the sense of duplicity, in a 7 kind of a way, think 7 of swords and misleading people to a purpose that serves your baser instincts. And then from your side, This tricksterness is an agility to operate in the circles that this person operates in, but also to operate beyond that, behind that, through it, right? Now, orange shade speaks to me to having the shakes earlier and having to do this sat on the ground and having to have some food before I continued. It's taking the orange into what is essentially brown, right? Roots, earth. So this is speaking to putting roots down with somebody else for many of you, and the contemplation of that idea, and whether they want to do it with you, and whether you want to do it anywhere near them. But it's also speaking of a need for both parties to ground, to root. If you are somebody who meditates and does work in vision, please, please, please root yourself into the earth, right? Grow yourself into the ground. If you do the LBRP, put some extra time into that Malkut energy, right? Drawing up more than you draw down when you're making the Kabbalistic cross. There is this like need to... I'm now seeing the trailer for Twisters in my head. So by the time you're seeing this, you might be going to see it this week or something, but it's this like hold on to something, because there is a twin twister energy coming in. You are one of these tornadoes, and you've clearly like left a lot of debris in their life. They are another of these tornadoes in a different energy. And I don't know whether you've seen the trailer, but I'm going to offer a spoiler that at one point they yell something like, "They're combining! It's twins and they're combining!" in that fantastic disaster movie way. So it's almost like they're going and leaving this wake of like chaos in orange energy. You're kind of going through what they've been doing. And, you know, maybe they're looking deep into the core of you and seeing a passing cow and going, oh, actually, shit, this person's onto me. There might be a destructive force in my life in a good way. But both of you need to descend from that orange chaos into brown, into chill. There may also, I'm hearing from Spirit, and I do apologise for my raunchy ancestors, but there may be another confirmational indication for you with the colour brown, in that they are all about it. That's just for some. I'm not going to go further with that, but it's coming through, right? Jesus. Anyway, okay, moving swiftly on to the King of Wands. Rather than just talking about any wand or any vessel. I feel like this image is very much them in this princely child, privileged child thing, having a brain explosion, having a mind blown. I'm seeing the Tim and Eric gif, right, of like, how could it possibly, how is this happening? And them in deep contemplation, and perhaps even a little bit of bashfulness with this reddish energy on their face for previous actions. You remember I said the vulnerability here isn't actually about expressing their emotion. It's about admitting that the way that they were operating is not the be all and end all of everything ever. And I think that's again true here. So this is echoing that sentiment, but this is coming into like what's happening next / outcome energy / advice in this section here. It differs depending on reading. And with King of Wands, this is like time for them to step into dominion of their own life. It's not presenting as Emperor because they are not at that level yet, and we know why, right? Whether this is non-committal in a less catastrophic sense than it would be in relationships, or whether it is indeed a love reading, this person has not yet graduated into a place where they can be the master of both universes. Because in the end, the Emperor can be very like frivolous and cool with whatever. And they're still sowing wild oats, but they're doing it from a position of stability, from a marriage, from a kingdom, right? From an empire. It's very, very different to be spontaneous and fiery and all of these good kind of Leo, Aries, Sagittarius vibes in the light, in the illumination, in the best possible dynamic of those things, instead of in like base Mars energy of, there's Mars that's like fiery in the sense of, I'm going to lead, I'm going to be the true Mars, I'm going to be the motivator for everything, I'm going to be the king, I'm going to be the highest motivation, like Mars MC kind of stuff. And then there's Mars that is like almost like Mars in the sixth energy, and it's not shade if you've got that, but it's like I'm going to do this and respond to this drive just to the point where it gets me through my day-to-day routine, and then I'm going to forget about it tomorrow and do the same shit again, right? So what Spirit wants me to say is there is Mars that is the ascended Simba in The Lion King, right? Taking back Pride Rock. And then there is Mars that is a guy jacking it so that he can sleep in time to get a good rest in for work. And he's jacking it to really like obnoxious porn and giving himself Peroni's dick, right? And I'm sorry that it had to be that image, but that is what's coming through. But there are one of those is the Emperor, the other one is not, right? And actually, the guy jacking it so that he can sleep is probably not even in page energy. It's not going to be up to a king, but you get that vibe, right? You get that even in the King of Wands, this person is not yet at the level where they are the master of their own circumstances, but they have the fire, they have the motivation, and that is partly what is combusting their ideas right now, giving them this mind-blown stuff. You may not even be a current presence in this person's life because this is kind of recent past stuff. This could be that you came in, blew up their idea of what they normally do, and then it's like, the brakes are on for that, and this is just about how they're doing, or like how it's going, right? How it started, how it's going. But there's very much a process going on here of them tapping into their prince in the light, which is like a discerning child or a thoughtful child or a child with gifts in the sort of enchanted sense. But using that fiery momentum that they would have poured into maybe sex or travel or one enterprise to the next or one friendship to the next or whatever it is, and channeling that back into like, let's think over this. Let's use that energy to go, what do I want? Is marriage in my future? Is commitment to anything at all in my future? Am I glad I didn't settle? Or is this the way I want to continue? What can I tell people in their respective positions that justifies both what I have done and what I'm about to do? Page of Cups. I think if this is a love reading, what they're about to do is maybe make an offer that is more substantial than they've made before. I think it may be by text or through something like WhatsApp or Signal or, any of those other ones because of all the writing on this. Excuse me. Hiccups confirmation. For those of you who appreciate people being more gestural and old school, this may even be a letter because of all this note taking. There's also an additional thing of like, if this person is mathematical or scientific in some way, this is extra confirmation for you. Yep, we're on about that one. Because for some of you, you have more than one energy that operates like this in your past, right? So you may be like, well, which one? And my heart is with you. But we've got, again, this representation of the feminine, which I feel is you, even if you're not identified as female or femme. And we've got the offer being made to them, but it's crossing their solar plexus. So how you respond to this, however you identify with this, whether it's love or not, but how you respond to their incoming communication will very much depend on where your self-esteem is at and not on the things that we've spoken about in explicit ways. What I mean by that is that you can be the alchemist for them and you can still be in an energy for you that is responding to a lack mentality. Because whenever we're talking about the solar plexus chakra, we're also discussing kind of the ego and the way that one sees oneself as positioned in the world, perhaps reputation, but more so the way one self-evaluates. So if you are seeing this person as still being kind of a king or eventually a king, right? I just can't wait to be king. That's why it was Simba. You may see their future kingliness and say, well, in order to be a queen, I must graciously accept this offer that is being sent to my ego, right? My solar plexus. I think that might be a bit sus for you, dude, because it wouldn't be turning up at that chakra if it wasn't about, I want to say fear, right? If it wasn't about lack, or if it wasn't about like, if I don't say yes now, will this person still be there when they're really, really done growing up? When they're actually king, when they're actually emperor? Because you're approaching empress in the way that you're presenting. And again, you don't have to be female or wanting to bear children or anything like that to identify with that. See the intro. But it's just that that's where you're coming through in the energy. And I feel like if you're already there, it would be a step down for you to say, I can see that they're making small progress here, so I'm going to presume that they will soon be ready for me and I'm going to accept now. I think actually this reading is a warning to give them a little longer, to let them look at themselves a little more. And remember, this energy was blind, and that was also in your decision. It's like you didn't know who to trust, and equally this person didn't know the havoc they wrought, if you like. So both of you were operating with blinkers down, right? But I think now you have come to understand, actually, this person has a lot of work to do, whether it's romantically or on some other area of their life. So if they come towards you and say, oh, I'm ready now, you know, as the adult sat at the edges of the sandpit, not the child in it, well, I'm not sure you actually are, right? It's kind of the thing of this kid toddles back over and says, can I watch my sister? And as the grown up, you have to be like, I'm not sure that's the best idea right now, but why don't you go play a little bit longer and we'll talk about it in a while, right? It doesn't have to be fuck off forever. It doesn't have to be go back to all of these other options, right? And they may do that. The trouble is, and this is from experience dealing with this energy as well as from spirit, sometimes if somebody's doing work on themselves and they've come from this energy, and I'm getting nausea, so I really apologise if this hits you hard. Sometimes if they come back over your way and they say, I've been doing a lot of work on myself, how's about it? And you don't say yes because you know that they've done a lot, but they're not quite there yet. They're still sort of fibbing to one party or the other. And this may be your giveaway, by the way. Then somebody who's not yet at emperor may well throw their toys out of the pram, particularly if they've been that prince energy all their life, right? And they've had everybody sort of coddle them a bit, or at least they've always been able to get what they wanted in adulthood. They are likely to go back to the way that they were operating and do it bigger, harder, with more tantrums, more Instagram pictures sort of pointedly your way, and in a more demonstrative fashion that is even more damaging to other people because they're kind of more reckless with it. It's like that by virtue of being sent back to think about it a little bit more, their ride becomes more rickety all of a sudden. It's the difference between a metal coaster and a wooden one. All of a sudden they're like vibrating everywhere and like just damaging more stuff because, you know what? Because they don't expect to know from anybody ever on anything. And I'm just going to say that and call it like it is, because I don't hate this person, but that's what it is really. It's about consent. And I'm not saying that in the sense that they've ever been necessarily dodgy with sexual consent, but there is coercion, right? And I don't think this person fully understands emotionally what that means. And I think that consent means that you're aware of the position of other individuals, right? So again, like if this was a business thing, giving other people the consent to turn you down is something this person hasn't really experienced, because it's always operated on like, oh, well, I want to work doing this, this and this to fulfill this thing, and then I'll do that. Then I'll be responsible. Then I'll put my finances over here in this thing. Then I'll settle into living in a house. Then I'll do, you know, like I could go ad infinitum, and it's a general reading, so take what hits. But my feeling is that this reading is acting as a bit of a warning to you that they're going to come in and say something. And it's going to be progress, right? It won't be the full package of progress because they're not done baking, right? They need to be slid back into the oven just for 5 more minutes. You know, they're almost there. But this process of like you firing them up in this alchemy has turned their dough into something approximating gingerbread, and they're not quite finished, right? They're not even at the chewy stage. It's just a bit sticky at the moment. If you put them back in the oven for 5 minutes, however that translates to actual time, and it will vary, by the time they come out, there'll be just the right balance of crunchy and chewy, and everything's great, and you can carry on together on equal footings, and they will have what approximates your life experience through the amount of frivolous stuff that they did, right? Because your life experience may be from a more painful place, or a more disadvantaged place perhaps, or having to be more agile in this tricksteriness. Whereas their life experience is going to come from the great amount of variety that they had open to them and indulged in. And together, with your powers combined, that's actually a really good match if both people are healed. But I really want to stress that I don't think they are. So this is your warning that in saying, I don't think you're fully baked, maybe 2 minutes in the oven, I think they'll take it badly, right? I think that they'll go and be like, well, fuck you, I'm going to marry somebody else. Or fuck you, I'm going to go back into doing this to people again and again like I did, but more demonstratively. Or fuck you, I'm going to start yet another business. Or I'm going to go off with this group of friends that I don't care as much about. Or whatever it is. I don't think, by the way, that they actually will marry anyone. And if they make any commitments to anything else, financially, physically, whatever, I don't think those commitments will be long-lasting, because I don't think they're capable of a long-lasting commitment right now. But what it might do is derail the whole process. And again, to use a personal example, I have confronted this energy and said, what are you doing? And the response to my what are you doing was, well, what are you doing? And my thing was, well, I'm living my life. I'm going on a date with this person. I'm exploring this. I'm here with you. And the kind of, that registered to this other person as the audacity for you to have options while I'm still baking. And then what they did was take my kind of confession of feelings, etc., alongside the other stuff that I said, throw it out or kind of do a TLDR with it, and immediately go on a date with the person the next day that they then committed to. And that lasted predictably a couple of weeks, right? But it was like, oh, I fully see it with this person overnight. I am now a person who does relationships and monogamy overnight, right? And it was in response to me challenging their princedom. And I think a similar thing might go on here, where they toddle towards you with a bit more progress than they had and say, hey, how's about it? And you say, actually, I'm really looking for a more dedicated energy right now, but I think you're almost there. It's just I'm going to do my own thing for a while you do yours. And the option is open in the future. And they will see that as, how dare you turn me down? And what is it that you're up to? And blah, blah, blah. And they will go off and, you know, maybe be a bit demonstrative in the way they're acting, maybe throw the toys out of the pram a bit, maybe take up other opportunities that won't last. And this is partly a warning to you because, again, it hits at the solar plexus, it hits at your self-esteem, your ego, because then you're seeing them moving on, or you're seeing them immediately giving somebody else what they never gave you, like the next day, right? Or you're seeing them take on a job opportunity that is very similar, and you're thinking, shit, does that mean they'll never be on this team? Or you're seeing them moving in with someone else, or, you know, diverging and making a chosen family when you're their actual family, whatever it is. But what I want to tell you is that the page is not yet mature. The king is not yet the emperor. This is all very temporary. So let them go off and tantrum. You may really enjoy the let them videos that are trending at the moment, right? Which essentially is a poem that's been sort of reiterated by different influencers and things, sorry. But the gist of it is, if someone wants to screw you over, let them. If someone wants to offer you the world, let them. If someone wants to undermine you, underestimate you, talk behind your back, let them, right? Don't fight the energy that anybody else is in. Just let them play it out. Let them receive the repercussions for it. Let them see that other things aren't going to work for them as easily as you would. Or let them see that an opportunity has passed them by while you do nothing more with your energy towards them and instead invest in your own life, your own growth, right? Which is the best thing you can do, by the way. For anybody like this, if you are attached to them on any level and in any sphere or arena or house, right, just carry on doing you. They will wake up. It is part of their destiny to wake up, or they wouldn't have met an alchemist who starts the process of turning their shit into gold. They can see the shit. They can see the gold in this 10 of Pentacles. It is their process to do the middle bit. Whatever energy you expend in this interim period, no matter what they're doing, no matter how wildly they're diverging and how many different stories they're telling different people, that bit in the middle, kind of none of your business, kind of not where to put your focus. So bring it back to you, bring it back to your life, bring it back to any other sphere that doesn't involve this person, and they will see you doing that, and it will make them think a little harder about what they're doing, and it will help them to progress. Again, for those who identify with twin flame energy, I know not everyone does, the best thing you can do for another person in that is to work on yourself. Because if you truly believe in that energy, then you believe that you guys are mirroring each other, right? So when one of you grows, the other one feels the benefit energetically of that growth. The thing to do is focus on being better. And they will do better if you do better by you. But putting your focus into improving, helping, fixing, assisting, soothing them is just going to make things more chaotic. And again, I speak from experience on that. The more I offered a soothing presence in this person's tornado, the more my own twister got out of control, actually. And it was only in separating those two things and saying, you go crazy over there, I'm going to continue doing what I was doing over here, that there was an avenue for potential reunion. And I say potential because other things happen, right? This applies, by the way, even if it's not romantic. You get where I'm going, okay? Now, outcome, 9 of Swords. It's not the best outcome card, is it? Many of you know that in the traditional Smith Waite, this is somebody who's up at night, somebody who has anxiety. This could be a reflection of, they come to you, you say, yes, but not now. They have a tantrum and you are actually left up at night. Whether it's because you did want this person or it's because you didn't, but there is resentment carried by you. Because the other potential in this is that you're nodding along and going, well, I want nothing to do with them anyway, as mentioned earlier. But actually you're carrying some anger about it, or you wouldn't have got this far in the reading, right? There is a sword in this whole shenanigans that is sort of turned round on you, right? And what's that saying? There's something about that like carrying resentment for another person is turning a sword on yourself. The other thing to come out with this deck is that this person is seeing for the first time what's happening. They're seeing the aridness, or all these sort of cracks in the head, this dry desert feeling of what it is that they've been growing, right? They're seeing that it can't grow, no matter how much they water it now. They're seeing that what they've been doing isn't working and is exploding on them. And their thoughts are turning on them as a result. So this is also an explanation that for the time being, this person's thoughts are their own worst enemy. I think they're going to be in a strong energy of rumination. And the shift of that in this reciprocity and this kind of connected dynamic that you appear to have, whether you want it or not, is that when one person is more mind-based, articulate, ideas-y in the conceptual sense, in the categorizing swords fashion, then the other person has more freedom to dream. Now, we spoke earlier about the fact that this person is always dreaming, always looking for the next hit, right? If they've been in that energy and they suddenly turn into the energy of anxiety, rumination, thought-provoking stuff, actually examining their actions logically with thoughts, then what can happen for you is that their previous colonization of the dreaming, if you like, means that the dream world is up and open to you. And this is why we're allowing ourselves a daydream, because now is actually the time that you can enter that space. It's almost like the roles have switched, because you used to be anxious about this, you used to be overthinking what their next move might be, whether or not you needed them as part of this endeavor, whether or not they're a good bet, what your role is, whether you're enabling them or not. All these thoughts spinning round and round and round, hence the sound of the washer, by the way. I'm sorry if that irritated anybody. And now it's almost like you stopped being the worrywart, and they've switched into worrying about how they've affected this and whether they've fucked it up for good, which allows you the space to relax a bit and just dream. Because you've relinquished control of this. You know that no matter what emotional energy you put into this process of theirs, you can't force them to be a grown-up, right? You can't accelerate that process with the energetic giving that you've been doing in whatever mode. So by you taking back your energy from that, you are relaxing a bit, and that allows you to think about what it is that you want in a less thought way, in a less ruminating way, and a more emotional, dreaming, Neptunian, abstract way. The fantasies they may have had about the thing that's on the shelf for them when they're 80 may be something that you pull into the present and explore for yourself, with other faces involved, with other places and roles involved. And you can actually explore now. Now, this concept of the future for either of you was the only pentacles we had, right? And then down here we've got a Joker card with our Dark Crystal Labyrinth deck, which, by the way, I want to say is unique to my channel, just because I've noticed a certain person picking up decks as I've kind of published them on here, and I don't know whether that's coincidence, but this Jim Henson deck we saw it here first, and the date and time of each video speaks for itself in that sense. I just want to put that out there, right? I don't know why I feel I need to defend against that, but I feel like I do. Almost maybe that person is watching and it's like, yeah, don't nick this one as well, dude. But yeah, we've got a Joker, and this is for like earth and water. This is the negative Joker. So we've got both written on this card because of the way that deck works. But I'm only seeing the earth pentacle here. So Joker of the earth. We're talking with Joker about trickster again. So we're again speaking to those themes that we discussed. But with earth, it's like grounding it again. The theme of grounding comes in again, right? Colours, money, the alchemist energy. It's all bringing it back into rooting these ideas. And I think for you, it's almost like an addendum to that outcome, is that your extra card, which I wouldn't have picked in the normal spread, is, yes, you're in trickster mode and you might have to sort of be adaptive in the way that tricksters are fantastic at doing, but you're also in earth energy. So this is you getting very steady in where you're at, in what your values are, in where your money's going, in where you live, in the sorts of people you surround yourself with, etc. There is a lot of like affirmative, distinct material action that can be taken at your end regarding all of this, whereas like they're switching into the mode of worry and abstraction and unsureness that perhaps you've had to embody because of either their addiction to variety or, for many of you, their misogyny, right? Right, hello again. I don't know where I cut that. But I just did the whole reading and forgot to do my extra little spicy divination section. So we're going to do that now. And then it may be a bit choppy where I do my outro kind of after this from before, if that makes sense. I think that speaks to the fact that the situation we've been talking about is not really finished, right? Or it's kind of reached an abrupt end and you're like, but I need more, right? I want more from the reading. I want to know how this is going to turn out, or what's going to happen to them, or, you know, what their karma is, or whatever it is. And I don't do readings like that, by the way, because I don't really believe in like punitive justice spiritually, right? it can sometimes happen, but I don't believe in searching for it through readings because it's bad vibes. But you may be sort of seeking answers in terms of where this person's going to end up going as a result of how they've been. So if that's the case, then if the tarot left you unsatisfied, I am really sorry. But please do like, subscribe, ding the dong anyway. And we'll get into like further info, if we can get any, through today's extra divination method. If you are new to me, each time I do a tarot reading like this, I'm going to do another form of divination, and it will change every reading until I run out of ideas. So if you can think of a sort of divination you haven't seen on the channel, comment it down below and I will do it and add it to the roster. But today what we're doing is scribble divination. And we're going to my lovely sketchbook here. That's my room. Ignore partly done Harry Dean Stanton. That may be relevant for some of you actually. You might resonate with something in the movie Paris, Texas, whether it's like that family setup or something about the colours or the score or dialogue or something. So if you haven't seen that, highly recommend. But also, again, it's unfinished energy, right? I've done the central bit, but he needs his hair and his neck and everything like that drawing in. So there's something here with like wanting to complete this process or wanting answers to an extent that is not necessarily healthy. And I feel that's tied up with the fact that this communication coming from them is going to speak to your solar plexus, to your ego, to your status, to your self-esteem. Whereas what I actually want to contact on behalf of spirit is the part of you that knows that this hasn't been the most healthy, and that saying, I only accept the best from other people is where you need to be at, right? I'd normally do this left-handed, but I'm going to use my right hand purely because this is a rainbow pencil for this trickster vibe that we got. So I'm going to kind of turn for the colours. But just as I'm speaking to you, I'm just going to take this for a walk, and I'm looking kind of up towards the light source and away from where I am. So I don't know what I'm drawing right now, or whether I'm even making a consistent line. As you can see, it's very haphazard. But this line will form the basis in a moment for what we're going to talk about as regards the drawing. It's a kind of form of automatic writing, I guess. And the colours will tell us a little bit extra as well. What am I picking up from spirit while I'm doing this? There is something about the situation, and we spoke about twin flames and mirrors and stuff, and you might even resonate with my mirrored souls reading. But there's like a reflection quality in this where there's some facet of the way they've been operating that either speaks to how you are now or how you used to be. And that is worth noting. So if, sorry about the beeping there, I hope you didn't hear that, but if this person maybe operates now in the energy that you used to be in, there's an invitation for you to have some compassion with that. Yeah, that's correct, because the pencil started doing something different in my hand there. I'm just going to make sure that because of that beep, you didn't come off camera wise. No, we're good. Okay. Okay, let's do some kind of line stuff. Some swirlies. I don't know what marks I'm making, guys. This may look like complete shit, but that's sort of how it works, right? Anything else you want to put through me now? Maybe not so violently, guys. Okay, I think we're done. Thank you. Sorry about the noise there. Let me just shake that energy off because somebody was operating my hand at one point. All cleansed, all groovy. Please watch the intro if any of that makes you feel fearful in the slightest, but sometimes I do let them take over. Okay. So what I'm seeing here straight away is a cat. And it's in blue and purple, so this is something to do with the dreaming, your emotions, I don't want to say play, which is what I usually say for cats. That's like the worst cat drawing I've ever done in my life. You wouldn't know I'm an artist, really, would you? But yeah, there's something here with this cat energy. Why would that be blue and purple, guys? Oh, reverence, okay. So cats used to be worshipped, right? We domesticated them, but they are creatures who've had a long history of being synonymous with the gods, being, you know, buried in certain ceremonial ways that were only reserved for kings and gods and, you know, royals in general. So there's something here about, like, despite the fact that you have been domesticated, or indeed that this person seeks to domesticate you, there is a need to recognize on the inner your godlike status, your closeness to divinity. And I don't mean that as like you're better than anyone or as distinct even from this person, because they too are holy, they too deserve forgiveness. But it's more like there's a concern from spirit that your energy that you're embodying right now does not acknowledge the divinity flowing through you as it flows through all things in that kind of animist sense. And a good way to tap into that is to see yourself as a cat for some reason. I'm also seeing this person here kind of furrowing. See their hair there? I will hold all this up afterwards, by the way, guys. But there is definitely a head shape here. And a very furrowed energy. Someone with high cheekbones who's got a bit of a glower. That's certainly resonant for me after what we've been talking about. But it's also because of the head shape. It's like, reminds me of futurist artwork, which was all about the expectations attached to industrialization, speed, and sort of, it was a very aspirational utopian art movement, but it can also, in its representations, appear very frightening. So this is somebody who has very high hopes, but who also is kind of almost like moving too fast for themselves. So this could be your person, or this could be just somebody involved in this that's like quite a crucial figure. It's almost like their dreams of speed and efficiency and dominion over their circumstances have a bit of a sinister undertone as well, because remember, futurism was tied into the world wars. So there's like a sense of things building momentum, and, you know, you see all the futurist images of things like rail travel and, again, industrialization, and futurism is sometimes very tied to communist imagery as well. But it's also like futurism has a link to the fascist, and it has a link to totalitarianism and kind of imposition of opinion on somebody else. Now, something I should say about that is that goes on the left and the right, guys. And it's to do with what Chomsky would call manufacturing consent, this process of giving us a particular narrative, which itself is designed to be manipulative, but not in an overt way, that then leads us down a path of opinion so that certain groups, certain lifestyles, certain modes of being become demonized to the point of totalitarianism or violence or kind of fascistic impulse in both the left and the right. Now, the reason I'm sort of suggesting this is not just to kind of cover myself with all bases politically here, because this can really happen anywhere, but to say that if you're picking up on this like energy of dominion with a person, of this might is right, and I have all this privilege, so therefore what I say goes, and you will agree with my opinion or face the consequences, be aware that that can happen even from people where it seems unlikely, because they are affiliated with, I guess, what we would think of as a more liberal dynamic. This is really like having that futurist energy coming in. Yes, it's someone utopian. Yes, it's someone speedy. Yes, it's maybe someone who moves too fast in every sense, right? But it can also be, I don't know the texture of this hair, I'm sort of getting maybe like 3, 4, see? Anyway, it can also be this like I don't look like the person who would be advocating for violence if someone doesn't agree with me, and yet, right? And that doesn't mean that you have to resonate with this person being violent, but it's that thing of sometimes manipulations and totalitarian modes of being and modes of operating can come from places that look very benign, that perform kindness very well, that have a lot of manifesto ideals about other people getting their freedoms. And actually they can be just as prescriptive is what I want to say. I'm going to lift this up so you can see it thus far. So this may be the person we're speaking about. Hit me up in the comments if it does look like anyone you know. But you see what I mean, like where the eyes honestly aren't coming through that much, but what did come through is this eyebrow here, this glower. So they may have like, I'm seeing someone with like a bit of a Neanderthal forehead. I love him dearly, so I'm not slating the actor, but a kind of Jared Padalecki look where it's like that brow ridge is really prominent and they might look a bit sort of scowly or have a resting bee face or whatever. But there's that kind of heaviness there, then a nose that's shaped like that, and then a kind of very curvy lip, but it's like they're in contemplation right now. Also the high cheekbone thing, so I don't know what, you know, I don't know whether this person is white or black or mixed or anything. You know, a lot of people are watching, but there certainly seems to be a masculine energy to this, and this kind of crazy hair that's like falling over their face as they're contemplative, so that might be relevant. Then we've got the cat here, which is a terrible drawing of a cat, but you see where I was getting it. Also here, in the background, I'm seeing Baba Yaga's hut, because of the wonky door, but I see no chicken legs down here, right? It would normally have them here. And in fact, there's no lines for that. So this is speaking to an enchanted place that doesn't move around. What do I mean by that? What's it called? Are they called third spaces? Hit me up in the comments if you know what I'm on about. But there's a term that was recently coined, like in the last few years, for spaces where people go to hang out that are kind of liminal zones for friendships, for socializing, that form many, many functions. So they might be a bar and a cafe and a bit of a library and a bit of a this and a bit of that. And they're kind of home away from home places for people to come together. Remember back at the very beginning of the reading, we spoke about people coming together as a crowd or as a gang or whatever. So there is something about meeting as a group where you will possibly encounter this person. I would guess that that's in this third space thing. Now, with it not having the chicken legs, this is saying that zone of meeting will not change. The house is not about to run away through the woods, i.e., the place that you go for these transformative alchemistic experiences with each other, these socializations, it's not going to shift, it's not going to change up on you, even if the group dynamic changes. So for some of you, that will be a warning that if you are trying to avoid this person in the aftermath of their next offer, you might not want to hang out at that joint space that you all normally go to. For others, this is saying that you need to keep attending a certain space or a certain group thing, whatever is happening with all of this other stuff, right? It's important that you keep going. For some of you, I'm hearing like AA meetings and stuff. Keep going to meetings, even if this person is there. Or keep hanging out in this space, whatever it is, even if they're there, because it's somehow beneficial. There is also, this is going to be kind of harder to do in an expressive way, but there is a guy or a girl here in crone energy with an elongated head. This is giving both red cap, bonnet and xenomorph. But they're scuttling. Sorry, this will make sense in a moment, guys. And this is going through all the colours, so this is big energy, right? My pen's running out, so this may be one of the last ones we do. Okay, that's absolutely terrible drawing from my end. But, right. Wings? Really, dude? Okay. I'll just draw it in, right? I don't know where their other leg is, but their other heel is here. I'm going to hold this up again so you can see it right. So there is, see this face here? That's the easiest thing to pick out. That's like a sort of hag-like or red cappy kind of face. Then we have the bonnet or the xenomorph head coming out back here. Then we have the body kind of curled up in like a runner lunge position here, yeah? And then, for some reason, Spirit told me to draw wings here on their ass. So I hope you can see all of that, because I'm now going to talk through it. I don't know, man. I don't know. If this was a Rorschach, I'd be very worried about me. Okay, let's go through it step by step. So, red cap energy. This is talking about the folklore of a goblin that would soak its bonnet in the blood of its victims, giving it its red colour. This speaks to me of red flags. If something looks like a red flag, treat it as a red flag. It's also talking about blood, so we're talking cyclical energy. If someone does something a certain number of times or repeatedly, you need to see that as part of a cycle that they repeatedly do, and you need to see that person or thing or circumstance as dangerous. If it looks like a bear and sounds like a bear, what do you treat it as, right? And there's something in there about choosing the bear as well for some of you. But with this red cap, yes, we like folklore. Yes, we like tales of the good folk. Yes, we like goblin energy. But a red cap is not a good thing to encounter in the wild. If you have anything additional to add about the lore of red caps in the comments, whether that's in actual folklore or in like gaming or anything like that, please do add it. But there's something about that, and about like, it's an appealing energy to talk about, but not one to be near. So let's not trust it when we see it, even if we're like, oh, cool, goblin, right? It's almost that thing of like, you encounter a cryptid in the woods and you go, wow, is that a? And in the time it takes you to say, is that whatever, you're dead. So if something has a red flag or a red cap, believe it. Xenomorph. This also speaks to, when you think about the xenomorph or about alien, you think of it drooling, right? I'm getting somebody else salivating. So there is lustful energy coming through again, which we talked about earlier. But this could also be like an eagerness for a certain thing. Salivation can speak to greed. It can speak to gluttony. Actually, any of the 7 deadly sins. And the reason I'm saying it with the xenomorph as well is that like it's so much drool, it makes me think of Pavlovian responses. So there is something here, if you are struggling to forgive this situation overall, about the idea that this is a conditioned response for this person. It is Pavlovian. It is brought about either from intentional conditioning from somebody else, right? Read, you're not going to connect with anyone any deeper than this, or I will lose you, kind of stuff. Or it's coming from, this worked for me so far back as a conditioned response to something that I can't even remember how it became conditioning, right? So this person's reaction to others and the way that they behave, whether it's romantic or not, goes such a long way back or is so ingrained at this point that this is why this work is taking longer. And what I don't want you to do is put them in the thing of, this is a long process because they're a shit person. Spirit is saying that is not objectively true. They are not bad, right? I'm now hearing Jessica Rabbit, I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way. So it's almost like we've drawn them as bad in our reading and in our drawings to give you the kind of whoop, whoop, danger, danger. But what you need to be treating them as from here on in is somebody who is at the mercy of their own responses, which are themselves conditioned, Pavlovian, ingrained, very difficult to deprogram, right? And deprogram is a key word here. So there may even be some kind of cult-like involvement or some kind of, I'm thinking like a familial figure who is religious or something along those lines. I don't know for all of you, because again, general reading. But it's like, yes, they're salivating. And yes, they're this horrifying like xenomorph thing that's like mutated out of what they used to be. But that salivation is a sign that actually they're responding to an external stimuli. They're responding to a cycle that they were shoved into, or a childhood they couldn't escape, or a person who wanted them to have this conditioning because it financially sexually, romantically, or energetically benefited them to have this person always available in hubby or wifey energy to them, whilst never actually getting close to somebody in a true relationship. So there's food for thought, right? Anything else? I'm now seeing here, oh, sorry, before we get to that, I will remember that though, because that's easily remembered. Okay, so why are they in like a runner's lunge? I think this is because they're like in runner energy if it's romantic, but also they're in like crouch to pounce. So it's speaking again to this cryptid thing. Why the wings on their ass? Very good question. What is that about, Spirit? Because you made me draw it. Okay. So for some of you, what this person falls back on is that their sexual reputation is, oh man, this person is heaven sent. This person is an angel. We've had nothing like it. Did the earth move for you too? Yada yada, right? So it may be that part of the extent to which they've gotten away with their behaviour before is because their sexual reputation precedes them, and it's very good. And the kind of word on the street amongst the people that they've fucked over is, you know what though, sometimes it might be worth it just for the one night. For others of you, I'm seeing the wings on the ass, but I'm hearing Mike Patton saying my ass is on fire. Why is that? Oh, okay, right, yeah. There is, again, it's back to the sexual. If this person is an attention addict that functions through schmecks, or is a schmecks addict, and that is kind of what we've come here to discuss, if you resonate with that, these wings or this like energy on the ass is like burning their ass as well. It's almost like the ass is on fire thing is, yes, their glutes are hot shit. Yes, everyone wants to check them out back there. Maybe everyone wants to either insert or, you know, have that be very functional in some other kind of thrusting way. Their ass is like on a pedestal for many people, but also that is where the sexual energy partly is held, and it is on fire. It is burning them up. So their own lust, and this can be lust for power as well. It can be gluttony, it can be greed in a financial sense, but whatever it is that is this kind of addiction, it's burning them out. It's heating them up to the point where they're gonna have to be on the run, literally or figuratively, right? So if you're identifying with this non-romantically, and this is all tied up with some money somewhere, I suspect that this person has had their fingers in some shady pies and they might have to be on the run soon in terms of that, or they might have to cover their tracks, hence this weird crouching position and this kind of sweeping of the hand here. But if it is a sexual thing, it's like, if you imagine that their sacral center is a fire, that fire is burning through them, burning them up. It's that almost Kundalini transformation of, I'm going to burn away everything that isn't correct for you with this desire, with this lust, maybe even with an attraction to you. And that's going to leave almost nothing left. And I think this person is very excited by fiery, lustful energy, but they don't realize that fire can also spread and cause harm. It's that very fire walk with me energy of like, this is out of control now. This is a fire that we can't stop. This thing that we've instigated is now gaining a momentum that affects literally all reality, if you've seen The Return. And it's like this person's, you know, they've been an angel in the sector of ass, to put it bluntly, for a long time. They've been put on that romantic or sexual pedestal. And now that whole thing is burning down with the same fire that in the future will fuel them to get what it is that they do value, what it is that they do want, whether it's a commitment or not. But the fire that fuels, that provides, you know, the steam for the steam engine, if you like, to go back to this futurist stuff, is also the fire that burns away, that destroys, that brings to the ground. It's tower energy. The last thing that I was asked to trace around was this guy just up here, who is a very, very stylized, very simplified version, I think, of RoboCop. Now, why RoboCop, universe? Please tell me. For some of you, the names James or Woods woodsy I'm hearing as well. Woodsmen are of relevance somehow. But that's not why, that's just a side thing. Okay, they're asking me to think about the sequels. I think there's something here about the fact that RoboCop is indestructible, right? If you don't know the mythology, please allow me, right? So in the original Verhoeven, this was a guy that was killed as part of a police department, I believe, in combat. And he was resuscitated and used as a vessel for a kind of robotic / man hybrid who became an enactment of the law. And again, there's like fascistic weird overtones to this. But it's kind of like the central question with RoboCop is, does he remember the extent of the tragedy through which he died and was resurrected as this like Frankenstein-y cyber monster, right? So does this person remember their past before the function took over the form, before the Pavlovian stuff hit? And with RoboCop, spoilers, but he does, and it's very sad. You know, he has this moment of crying on a rooftop. Or does he cry? I can't remember. Or does he just say something sad? But it's very sort of heart-wrenching to realise that actually he remembers dying, and all of his memories of his previous life emotionally are somehow still in there. So it's like, even if this person doesn't consciously tap into what it was that created the way that they function, emotionally, they have that emotional flashback to it. And if you don't know what an emotional flashback is, go to Richard Grannon's channel. He's got an excellent video breaking it down. But it's really relevant for people who act out of trauma, whether or not the way that they act is okay, right? Also with RoboCop, there is this marriage of the futuristic with the present, of the biological, with the biomechanical, to serve the function of something greater as an organisation or corporation. Now, RoboCop ends up working kind of for a militaristic police / corporate government that is like the ultimate corrupt superpower. And this is not something that's necessarily in alignment with who he is. Think like even more corrupted Judge Dredd energy. And I'm sort of really simplifying there because it's a very complex film and it's a lot better than I'm making it out to be. But I'm taking the bits that are relevant to this. This person may be a slave to some kind of corporate identity or some notion of success that's tied into government, police, military, all of the above, or like financial gain through those institutions. Excuse me. I'm sorry if that came out as an actual belch, but I got another hiccup of a confirmation there. I think that this is key to unravelling how it is that they came to be how they are, and indeed what it is that they might ruminate on or indeed escape from to transcend it. Because again, I do think, you know, the just can't wait to be king thing is back. It's like they can't wait to be a king. They want to transcend into the emperor at the deepest level, but nothing about the way that their princely circumstances are set up either enables them to see what that trajectory looks like or allows them to actually maneuver to grow in that direction. They have to burn it down before they can move forward. They have to cut ties with a lot of people. They have to piss off a lot of people in power. They have to, you know, reshift, change gear a lot. And I think also that's why this bit here is in, again, blues and purples. So we're talking about destruction, but it looks to me like a gear stick or a joystick moving, switching from one to the other, you can see. But it also over here does sort of look like a peen. So it's like a reference to their joystick, but also a gear stick. They're changing gears, they're switching their life up, and it's a process that if they get it wrong, you hear that grinding noise and the car stalls, right? It's I'm talking about how we drive in the UK, so sorry if you're only used to automatic, but it's, you know, it's that thing of like, in order to switch direct trajectories right now, smexually and in terms of momentum, there's going to be a really uncomfortable process. And I don't think actually that you want to, or that spirit wants you to witness that whole thing. I think it's their job to drive and their job to have their sad RoboCop moment on the roof before they decide who they're going to be allied to. But it's kind of not your problem, right? And again, it's re-emphasizing the message of the reading. So I hope that was good confirmation for you. I won't do my full outro here, but I will click it in now. I know that was a long one. I really hope it was helpful. If it was, please, please, please like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly, share far and wide as far as you see fit. It doesn't have to be this reading if you don't want anybody to know your business, but pass me on to a friend if this resonated for you. There is a link in the description of the channel Lucky Dip where you can kind of go in, click shuffle and get any reading that I've ever done, which is like over 100 at this point, and any pile from any of those pick-a-pile readings as well. So there will be something else if you want something further, or if you want to just give me to a friend but you don't know what they need, that's a good bet. And you can book with me or donate as well in that description link. Okay. Take care, you've got this. If they come back, know your worth, right? And it's okay to say not yet in a compassionate way. It's not a no, even if they act like it is. But I think that it's time for you to think about your own needs and daydream about your own possibilities, because for one reason or another, in their princely energy, they have colonized your mind. Their reign is over.